Hello and welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes. We're about to head over to the to the House of Commons for Prime Minister's questions in a moment. But before we do, I'm Graham Hughes. Oh, no, that's the subscribe button. I'm Graham Hughes, and if you'd like to join the chat today, just hit that subscribe button, and we're going over momentarily to the House of Commons. So here we go. Dame Naya Griffith is talking at the moment, and I'll ramp up the sound just as Lindsay Hoyle takes to his feet. Okay, here we go.
Right, that completes Welsh questions. We now come to questions of the Prime Minister. Mike Martin.
Come on, Mike.
Question number one, Mr. Speaker.
Say what needs. Ask what needs to be asked.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the progress in talks between Ukraine and the United States.
Big shout out to Scott,
we must
Dave
now
W,
redouble our
Billy
efforts
in
to
the
get
chat
a
there,
lasting,
Diz,
secure
MH Carer.
peace.
Hope you're all right.
Mr. Speaker, on
People.
Saturday,
Afternoon all.
I'll convene international leaders to discuss how we can make further progress. Can I also pay tribute to the bravery and dedication of all those responding to the ship collision of the East Yorkshire coast? Our thoughts, I'm sure, of the whole House are with the family of the crew member who is sadly presumed dead. Mr. Speaker, this week we introduced landmark legislation to get Britain building, paving the way to restoring the dream of home ownership for working people across the country. We're also driving forward our Employment Rights Bill, the biggest boost to workers' rights in a generation. That's our plan for change in action. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Mike Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Russia has abducted at least 19,000 Ukrainian children and transferred them to Russia.
Unbelievable.
They have been told that their parents don't love them, they've been placed in Russian homes, and they have been re-educated. For this despicable crime and others, the International Criminal Court has issued 6 arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin and his gang. I note the Prime Minister's previous fulsome support for the ICC, and I also note his comments just last night about the support that the UK will offer to Ukraine in achieving a just and lasting peace. Will the Prime Minister confirm to the House that British peacekeeping troops will only be deployed to Ukraine if the peacekeeping deal includes both the return of Ukraine's children and Putin's prosecution?
Well, Mr. Speaker, firstly, I thank you for raising this issue because it is an absolutely terrible case of abduction and kidnapping. And when we say a lasting, just settlement or peace in Ukraine, it must, of course, involve dealing with this issue, and we are, as he would expect, raising it continually with our allies.
John Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Telford and Britain voted for change in July. Yet this week we saw the bizarre spectacle of the Conservatives attempting to bring back the Rwanda policy, clinging onto a gimmick that cost the British taxpayers £700 million, yet only sent 4 volunteers to Rwanda. As Labour works to secure our borders through our plan for change, does the Prime Minister agree with me? It's quite clear the party opposite have done absolutely nothing.
Well, he's quite right. They ran an open borders experiment that saw numbers go up to almost 1 million. And the leader of the opposition was the cheerleader, thanking herself for the lobbying that she did. The Rwanda scheme, yes, Mr. Speaker, £700 million of taxpayers' money to remove 4 volunteers. What a contrast. We've got the flights off. We've got the flights off. 19,000 people removed who shouldn't be here. As with the NHS, with prisons.
Don't know why it's gone off. BBC feed or my internet, one of the two. I can still see you. I'm still streaming. I don't know what the hell is happening here. But I will have to adjust my wellies, I think. Just hold on with me for a moment. I might have to reset.
The economy, everything else, we're clearing up the mess that they lost.
Even if the opposition can be made a lot.
Oh, I can't go to full screen anymore. I'm going to have
Later
to
today, the Prime Minister...
So I'll start again from Kemi Badenoch's speech there.
Sir David, he was deeply loved and...
Okay. Sorry about this, everyone.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Who are letting go.
Oh, no, gone too far.
What a contrast. We've got the flights off. 19,000 people removed who shouldn't be here.
Sorry about that.
With
Yeah,
prisons,
SG,
the economy, everything else. We're clearing
turn
up
it
the
off
mess
and on again.
that they lost.
Okay, here we go. I've actually sped it up a little bit so we can get up to speed.
Later today, the Prime Minister is meeting the family of Sir David Amess. Sir David gave this House and our country 40 years of service. I hope the Prime Minister will agree that getting the response to his murder right is vital, not just to his family, but to our democracy. Mr. Speaker, every week, I speak to businesses who are letting go of staff or closing. Has the Prime Minister been given an estimate of how many people will lose their jobs because of his budget?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just on the question of Sir David, he was a deeply loved and respected colleague, and behind me is the plaque, as is the plaque to Joe Cox in front of me. And I know this was deeply felt by the House, but particularly, as I acknowledged at the time, by the party opposite, who lost a colleague and a friend in the most awful of circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I am meeting the Amess family later on today and will make sure that they get answers to the questions that they asked. Mr. Speaker, in relation to businesses, I'm really pleased to say we've got thousands of new jobs into the economy. We've got more investment in the last 20 years, an absolute record. Wages are up higher than prices. 3 interest rate cuts, the best boost for the cost of living for a very long time.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to get out more. Inflation is up, and estimates of job losses are between 130,000 and 300,000. Okay, his tax rises are hurting every sector of the economy. Things are getting worse for nurseries. Nurseries are writing to stressed parents right now, telling them that fees will go up because of his jobs tax. Can he explain how more expensive childcare is good for the economy or for working families struggling to make ends meet?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're putting in childcare. Look at the breakfast clubs, 2 in her constituency. But she's rather forgetting the 22 billion black hole that they left.
Oh, he's did the 22 billion. He dropped the 22 billion.
That's why we had to take the necessary but right measures we did in the budget. And what's her response? Not that she'd reverse them. Oh, no, she doesn't say that. She attacks what we've done, but she doesn't say she would reverse it because she wants all the benefits of our budget in return to investment, but she doesn't want to pay for it. That's how we got into the mess in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is out of touch because he should know that nurseries are charging over £2,000 for full-time care. That's £24,000 a year after tax, and he's talking about 60p breakfast
wow,
clubs.
thank
He
you,
has
Andrew.
no
That's
idea
really
what
kind
people,
of
he has
you.
no
I've
idea
just
what
got-
people out there
just got a
are
very
experiencing.
large chat from
And it is not just
That
the
is-
families.
that is incredibly kind.
Even
Thank you.
councils must
Might
pay
have to
his
drop
job
some
tax.
C&F
To cope with it,
bombs
the
in
average council
response.
tax bill is increasing by
Thank you.
over £100 in April, after he promised to freeze it. Hard-working families' money is going to the Chancellor instead of social care and fixing potholes. Why should these families pay more for less?
She's twisting everything there, isn't she?
Well, she really shouldn't
Mega
denigrate
chance.
what she calls, I think,
Thanks for the mega
60p
chance.
breakfast clubs. She should be welcoming them. And she asked about council tax, Mr. Speaker. The Tories put up council tax
Not
every
super.
year for 12
Not
years.
super, SG.
Their
Mega.
manifesto, Tory LGA manifesto, government should remove the caps on council tax. And then Hampshire Council, Tory, wanted a 15% increase. We said no. Slough Council, again, Mr. Speaker, Tory, wanted 3%. We said no. Windsor and Maidenhead, Tory, now Lib Dem, wanted 25%. We said no. We're the ones that are doing the right things to get this country on the right track.
He comes
Mr. Speaker,
prepared,
the
doesn't
point
he? I've
is
got to give him
promised
that.
to freeze, and they are going up. And if he wants to talk about councils, let's look at Liverpool or maybe Birmingham, where the rubbish is piling up so high, people vote Labour and all they get is trash, just like what he's saying at the dispatch box.
That's not a question. It was like,
People all over the country are suffering, not just in Birmingham. Millions of elderly people have had their winter fuel payments snatched away. At the same time, care home fees are set to go up by a devastating £3,000 because of his jobs tax. How does he expect pensioners on a fixed income to make ends meet?
Mr. Speaker, this is why it's so important that wages are up higher than prices.
She's asking the
That's
same
why it's so
questions
important that
every
the
week.
interest rates are coming down. This is the biggest boost for the cost of
so
living for a
prepared for
very,
this 'cause
very
he
long
knows
time.
what she's gonna
What we're
ask.
doing is picking up and fixing the mess that they left.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, The Prime Minister is not looking at what is happening out there. Every day I speak to businesses who are telling us that they think that they are going bust. And as if businesses and families didn't have enough to worry about, supermarkets say food prices will increase by over 4% because of the jobs tax. And that's before we get to the immoral family farms tax on the very farmers who work so hard to produce our food. What does the Prime Minister have against farmers anyway? Does he not see that his budget is killing farming in this country, and he is making life so much harder for everyone else?
He's making life harder for the wealthy landowners who use farmland to avoid paying inheritance
£5 billion for farming over the next 2 years. That is a record amount. We've set out the roadmap for farming, which has been welcomed by farmers. Many thousands of farms have benefited from the farming schemes. But she talks about prices. Wages are going up higher than prices. That's the first in a long time that's happened. So for families across the country, they're better off under Labour.
He's got no answers today. What the farmers are complaining about is the sustainable farming incentive, which he has just scrapped or withdrawn. They are making mistakes with this budget. And that's why in 2 weeks, the Chancellor will come to this House to present an emergency budget the Prime Minister said we would not need. They will try and make out it's because of global events, but the truth is they trash the economy with their bad choices.
What? That's very rich coming from the fucking Tories. You trashed the economy. Did you, Labour?
And they snatched winter fuel payments.
Do you not remember the mini budget?
They said that they would be
Liz Truss
pro-business,
hiding under the table.
They hiked taxes on jobs. And he, Mr. Speaker, he promised to freeze council tax, but it's going up by £100. This is a high-tax, low-growth, job-killing government. Will he use the emergency budget to fix the mess he's made?
No, we're trying to fix the mess you made.
11%, £22 billion black hole.
Oh, we said it again.
A mini budget that made us the laughing stock of the world, and they want to give lectures on the economy to us. Thank you very much.
He's not taking lectures. He's not taking lectures.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With 1 in 8 young people across the country not in education, employment or training, people in rugby are worried about a wasted generation. Too many people with disabilities and health conditions are not getting the help that they need to get into work. So will the Prime Minister set out how this government will give everyone who is able to work the support they need, provide compassion to those who can't work, and fix the broken welfare system left behind by, you guessed it, the Conservatives?
I thank him for raising this issue. Mr. Speaker, I come from a family that dealt with disability through my mother and brother over many years, so I do understand the concerns that have been raised by him. But we inherited a system which is broken, it is indefensible economically and morally, and we must and we will reform it. We will have clear principles, Mr. Speaker. We will protect those who need protecting. We will also support those who can work back to work. But Labour is the party of work. We are also the party of equality and fairness.
Tariff on our steel and
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to begin by giving a shout-out for Young Carers Action Day today,
going to mention it.
But I promise the House I will not sing. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has rightly spoken about the need to get more people into work, and he repeated that now, so people have more dignity, we can get the economy going, and we can cut the benefits bill after the disgraceful legacy left by the Conservatives.
You were there for 5 years.
But does the Prime Minister recognise that for many disabled people, the best way to help them into work is to support them properly with more special equipment, with training, with better healthcare and so on? And will he also today calm anxieties that he himself has raised for many of us, that the disability benefits for people who simply cannot work will not be cut?
Mr. Speaker, we will, of course, as I've just said, the principles, we will, of course, support those who need support, but also help those who can work into work. They'll be the guiding principles. But what we've inherited is shocking, and they ought to be silent. 1 in 8 young people not in education, work or training. That is...
Oh, fucking hell. I'm really sorry. After Andrew was so generous, it's pissing down with rain outside. I don't know if that's got something connected to the fact that the internet...
Mr. Speaker, we will, of course, as I've just said, the principles, we will, of course, support those who need support, but also help those who can work into work. They'll be the guiding principles. But what we've inherited is shocking. And they ought to be silent. 1 in 8 young people not in education, work or training. That is a lost generation. That is their inheritance. They've got plenty to say now. They did nothing for 14 years and left us in terrible inheritance.
David. Speaking to international issues, can I congratulate the Prime Minister on helping to secure the restoration of US military and intelligence support for Ukraine? But can I press him on progress to persuade President Trump against damaging metal tariffs already hitting British industry? The Prime Minister knows that we on these benches believe he must be more robust with President Trump, like the Europeans and like the Canadians.
Yes.
So will the Prime Minister fly out to Canada as soon as possible to show their new Prime Minister and the Canadian people that Britain stands with its Commonwealth allies against Trump's threats and against Trump's tariffs?
Well, Canada is an ally and a very important ally.
Completely agree. Ed Davey's the real leader of the opposition.
To our allies on many occasions about the situation in Canada. On the question of tariffs, obviously, like everybody else, I'm disappointed to see global tariffs in relation to steel and aluminium. We will take a pragmatic approach. We are, as he knows, negotiating an economic deal which covers and will include tariffs if we succeed, but we will keep all options on the table.
Claire Hannah.
Ile fadra Conadív agus Shock na Gaeilge fásta Deis chun teanga agus our culture Kellaroo or Fodandone. Happy St Patrick's Day, everybody, and happy Irish Language Week as well, an opportunity to use Irish language and culture across the world. It's an increasingly turbulent world, Prime Minister, with relationships and norms turned upside down over recent weeks, and that's why I congratulate the Prime Minister and the Taoiseach for re-establishing warm and firm relationships at their summit last week, and it's reassuring for all of us to know that whatever our constitutional future, that bond is lasting and refreshed. Will the Prime Minister join me in wishing a happy St Patrick's Day to all who value our shared bonds, and can I take this opportunity to invite him to Belfast in August 2027, which was announced this week as the host of the Fleadh Cheoil na HÉireann for the first time.
Well, can I join her in wishing everybody celebrating a very happy St Patrick's Day? Mr Speaker, she's right. We need a strong and settled relationship between the United Kingdom and Ireland, and the need for that has never been greater, which is why I was delighted to host the Taoiseach in Liverpool last week at our first annual UK-Ireland summit. We've turned the page, started a new era for our relationship with Ireland, and I'd be very happy to go to Belfast in 2027. I want to go much sooner than that.
Andrew Stone.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. In just 20 days' time, new sentencing guidance will come into effect that the Justice Secretary has already conceded will be two-tier in its nature. It will mean that the colour of your skin or the religion you have can give you leniency in the eyes of the law and will plunge public confidence in the judiciary into crisis. But it is avoidable. We Conservatives have tabled a bill that, if backed on Friday, can stop this guidance in its tracks. So will the Prime Minister, will he now overrule his Justice Secretary and confirm here and now that he will back this bill, or will he simply step aside and prove he has in fact been two-tier Keir all along?
Oh, for fuck's sake. No, the inquiry found that
should be equal before the law. That is why the Lord Chancellor has taken up the issue with the Sentencing Council. But he needs to do his homework, because the proposal that he complains about was drafted in 2024, and the last government was consulted. And when they were consulted, what did they say? They said they welcomed the proposal. Now, Mr Speaker, I understand that the Shadow Justice Secretary is taking the Sentencing Council to court. Perhaps he should add himself as the second defendant so we can get to the bottom of the ballroom.
That was a forthright response, wasn't it?
Thank you. Mr Speaker, I'm very very proud to represent a constituency that has 8 synagogues, a thriving Jewish population, and the UK's largest Jewish cultural centre, JW3. But this week, I was horrified to read reports about rising anti-Semitism on NHS wards, and in particular, a shocking incident in which a Jewish NHS staff member was called a baby killer by their colleague. The NHS that I know and love is open to everyone, regardless of their background. So could I ask the Prime Minister, what is he doing to ensure that my Jewish constituents can safely use our beloved National Health Service?
Well, I thank her for raising these deeply concerning reports. It is completely unacceptable for anyone to experience racism, discrimination or prejudice in the health service. I know my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, takes such reports extremely seriously. It is a fundamental principle that the NHS provides care and treatment for everyone, regardless of race, faith or background. This is a really serious issue. You've let yourself down, you know it. I expect all trusts and healthcare providers to take necessary action against any staff who've expressed views that do not reflect the views and values of the NHS.
Dave Dugan, a closed question.
Question 9, Mr Speaker.
This is when they
Mr Speaker, he asked about UK-US relations. As he knows and the House knows, I'm committed to strengthening those relations. The US is an indispensable ally. We are working together to try to secure a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. And I've spoken to the President on a number of occasions, including this week.
Dave Dugan.
I agree with the Prime Minister in those sentiments. The ceasefire negotiations this week are a cause for great optimism, and I welcome the efforts that the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, had done in leading that priority. But last week at the dispatch box, the Prime Minister said in answer to my right honourable friend, the member for Aberdeen South, that he had no knowledge of the United States planning to withdraw military aid from Ukraine, yet they did that the following day. It's against that backdrop, because I know the Prime Minister wants a just and lasting peace in Ukraine that respects Ukraine's borders and territorial integrity. When he's impressing that priority upon the President of the United States, what reassurance can he give the House today that the President of the United States is actually listening?
Great question, but I don't know how I can answer
Let me give this reassurance.
The United States is a fucking nutcase.
As soon as that step was taken, I and my team started work to try and ensure that we could get back to a situation of full support for Ukraine. I won't detail everything that was involved over the last week. I can assure him and the House a huge amount of hard work, discussions and diplomacy was used with all of our allies and others to ensure that we could get yesterday to go as well as we hoped it would. I am pleased that we've made progress. I think that's very important for Ukraine, and I'm extremely pleased that support has been put in, backed by the US, for Ukraine. So that's what I did once I understood what had happened. I'm pleased with where we've got to, but as ever, we must go further.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Disabled people in my constituency are frightened. And they're frightened because they're again hearing politicians use the language of tough choices. And they know from bitter experience that when politicians talk about tough choices, it means the easy option of making the poor and vulnerable pay. So instead of cutting benefits for disabled people, wouldn't the moral thing to do, the courageous thing to do, be to make a real tough choice and introduce a wealth tax on the very wealthiest people in our society?
Respond to this well, Keir. Respond to this
the
well.
The party opposite left a broken welfare system,
no, I don't
which
give a fuck
locks
about the
millions
Tories.
out of work. That
Give
is
people
indefensible, in
reassurance.
my view, economically and morally. Of course, we need to support people who need support. We need to help those who want to work to get back into work, and I think there's a moral imperative in that. He talks about a wealth tax. We have raised money, the energy profits levy, taxing non-doms and air passenger duty on private jets. But this isn't a bottomless pit, and we must kick-start growth to get the economic stability that we need.
Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
That was a shit answer. That's pissed me off.
Most people would accept that we need more housing in this country, yet so often it's not accompanied by the necessary infrastructure. In my own constituency, thousands of houses are proposed, yet without the 250 million to upgrade Junction 12 of the M5, the inspector is likely to rule our plan unsound. So will the Prime Minister use his upcoming Planning and Infrastructure Bill to see how developer and landowner contributions can more effectively build this vitally needed infrastructure which would benefit communities up and down the country?
Well, he's right. We have to get the houses built that we need in his constituency and elsewhere, something that the party opposite failed to do. That's why we've introduced the infrastructure bill, which I think he welcomes, and that bill will get Britain building so we can deliver on those 1.5 million new homes through our plan for change. In relation to the particular issue he raises, I know that he and my honourable friend, the member for Stroud, have been working together to try to resolve this issue as I understand it, and I'm happy to ensure he gets a meeting with the relevant minister if that would help in taking it further.
Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I commend this Labour government's landmark reforms to get Britain building through our plan for change? Yes. I look forward to working with ministers to ensure developers deliver on what they promise to local residents, so that new homes also have access to roads, GP surgeries and dentists, and don't create an extra burden on hospitals like the William Harvey Hospital in my Ashford constituency. What is the Prime Minister's message to the blockers standing in the way of the homes and vital infrastructure our country needs?
Well, he's a dedicated campaigner for his constituents. Well, we know who's been standing in the way for the past 14 years. It's the party opposite. And they've learned absolutely nothing. The leader of the opposition claims that she's never opposed growth or development. That's not what she's telling her constituents, Mr. Speaker. Only last month she wrote in her newsletter that she'll keep working with Conservative colleagues to block a vital energy infrastructure project in her own backyard. She's not alone. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Shadow Defence Secretary, Shadow DEFRA, they're all at it. What a bunch of blockers.
A bunch of blockers.
Mr. Speaker, the Employment Rights Bill will grant union equality representatives the right to paid time off work.
But it does.
Will the Prime Minister grant special constables the right to take unpaid leave to perform their duties?
I'm grateful to him for raising the question of special constables who play a very important role in our communities and keeping us safe. The numbers of special constables dropped under the last government. We support the existing employer-supported policing scheme and will support our special constables, but they dropped under the last government.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Long time.
I recently visited Middlesbrough's James Cook University Hospital and learned of the brilliant work in the neurosciences department for the survivors of stroke, brain and spinal injuries and many others. But it only has 18 rehabilitation beds to serve a population of some 1.4 million people, whereas the guidelines say it needs 80 beds, meaning that patients in the Tees Valley do not get the rehabilitation they need. So will the government remedy the position by ensuring that resources are allocated to meet the ambition to develop a world-class new rehabilitation centre to serve the Tees Valley and beyond?
Well, I thank him for his question. It is important to hear about the important work that James Cook Hospital is doing in his constituency. We are investing £350,000 in research on interventions which support people with functional neurological disorders to rehabilitate them within the community. And of course our plan for change invested £25 billion to cut waiting lists, speed up treatment and shift more care into the community. In relation to the hospital, I'll make sure he gets a meeting with the Minister to see what further can be done.
Will the Prime Minister look at the case of my constituents, Mr. and Mrs. Adrian Fenton, who returned home from visiting France in their motorhome to discover an illegal immigrant concealed in the bike rack? They reported it immediately to the police, only to receive a fine from the Border Force of £1,500. Will he agree that my constituents ought to be thanked rather than punished? And does he accept that this action will send a message to deter anybody from acting responsibly in the future?
Can I thank him for raising this important case on behalf of his constituents? I've seen some of the details and I am concerned about it, and I do think it's important, as he says, that the Home Office look into it, and therefore we will do so, and I'll make sure that he is updated in relation to that in due course.
Richard Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Veterans in Sefton, one of the many remarkable charities in my constituency, indicate that statistics can only partly measure the price paid by servicemen and women. Incidents of broken marriages, suicides, alcoholism, deep depression and homelessness among veterans remain largely unquantified. Given that, will my right honourable friend restate Labour's commitment to providing our veterans the holistic support they need and deserve?
Well, we owe an extraordinary debt to our veterans, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to renewing the nation's contract with those who've served, and that includes the guarantees of homes for heroes for those who have served, dedicated mental and physical healthcare pathways in the NHS, and dedicated to sport to help those leaving service using their skills to find new and fulfilling careers.
Yesterday, with no notice, DEFRA closed SFI applications, leaving thousands of farmers who want to deliver public goods waiting for a year without support. So can the Prime Minister assure British farmers that they won't be left stranded, unable to support environmental and food resilience goals due to lack of government support?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as she knows, the SFI schemes
Wayne, it's my channel.
Have operated to
it's my
provide
channel, my rules.
Considerable support so far. There have been a number of schemes. They've closed in the past, and then a new scheme has been put in place. They were closed in 2022 and 2023 by the party opposite without the 6 weeks' notice. But we do support farmers. We will be putting forward more details at the spending review. But the difference, Mr. Speaker, in this government is we're funding the farmers. They failed to spend the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In October 2023, in an interview with LBC, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "I think Israel does have that right," when asked if cutting off power and water to Gaza was appropriate. For 11 days now, Israel has blocked the entry of vital goods and aid into Gaza, subjecting over 2 million people to collective punishment and starvation. Israel's decision to also cut off electricity to a plant supplying drinking water to 500,000 people is yet another blatant violation of international law and further evidence of genocide against the Palestinian people. In light of these facts, does the Prime Minister still maintain that Israel is not committing genocide?
Look, I'm really appalled by Israel blocking aid when it is needed at greater volume and speed than it's ever been needed. Blocking goods and supplies and power entering Gaza risks breaching international humanitarian law, and it shouldn't be happening, and we are doing everything we can to alleviate that situation.
Sir Julian Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In his extremely important upcoming discussions with other nations about Ukraine, will the Prime Minister focus on the fact that it was standard Russian procedure to take over other countries by having bogus elections and installing puppet governments? And will he therefore impress on other colleagues to be very wary of calls to hold elections in Ukraine during a wartime situation which could result in the subversion and takeover by Russia of the entire country?
Thank him for raising a really important point, and the track record is there for all to see. On top of that, of course, we in this country did not hold elections when we were at war. That is a perfectly reasonable and normal course of behaviour. And yes, of course, that has to be part of our discussions as we go forward, including the meeting that I'm convening on Saturday.
Lord Hatton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. South Dorset is ready to play its part, making Britain a clean energy superpower. But after 14 years of Conservative failure, there are many untapped opportunities on our doorstep. Green investment opportunities such as Port Wind, Moor Wind and a hydrogen storage hub are all coming down the track. So can the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that the government will work with the Crown Court on these projects, invest in key infrastructure and ensure that South Dorset's green energy potential is hardwired into our plan for change?
Well, I thank him. He's absolutely right about making Britain a clean energy superpower. We are committing £2.3 billion to support hydrogen projects, and I recognise the huge potential of South Dorset to become home to a storage hub. We're ensuring public and private investment works together, and that's exactly what the Crown Estate Act does, unlocking significant investment, boosting offshore wind and kick-starting economic growth.
Andrew Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Leader of the Opposition has already mentioned, later today the Prime Minister will meet the family of our dear late colleague, Sir David Amess, who was so brutally murdered at his constituency surgery 3.5 years ago. I plead with the Prime Minister to reverse the decision to deny the family a public inquiry, despite similar inquiries being held into other tragic instances. So, will he please stop this shameful saga and heed the call of the Amess family for a judge-led public inquiry into David's death and the related failure of the Prevent programme from a heartbroken family?
Can I acknowledge just how heartbroken they are? It's difficult to imagine what they've gone through, what they continue to go through. And that's why it's very important that I meet them this afternoon, which I will do, and discuss with them all the questions they want to raise with me. Sir David was a respected and loved a colleague across this House, and as I say, I absolutely understand how his family must feel about the tragic circumstances in which he died and then everything that followed thereafter.
Final question, Chris Cage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow marks 29 years since 16 children and their teacher were murdered at Dunblane Primary School. In recent weeks, my constituents have raised with me the alarming fact that adverts offering handguns for sale are appearing on technology platforms like Google and YouTube. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that technology companies have an obligation to all of us to do everything proactively possible to prevent illegal advertising of this kind and not rely on a reactive, will remove it when it's reported approach, which is simply not good enough?
The thoughts, I'm sure, of the whole House are with the victims of the Dunblane massacres 29 years after the tragic event. The Online Safety Act will require online services to proactively remove such content from their platforms and prevent it appearing there in the first place. These duties fully take effect from Monday, and then we'll make sure that all companies meet their obligations.
That completes Prime Minister's questions.
That wraps it up for God. Okay, so we'll head over to the big Graham. Hello, I'm Big Graham. Thanks for joining us there. We'll just should we watch them all filing out. Look, oh, tough decisions. I left that on. They've been making tough decisions. Tough choices. I've got to have all these alternatives for what they always say. You see people filing out there. Got Angela Rayner there in white. You can notice her a mile off. And they're sort of having a chat. It's interesting to see who talks to each other. Like Rachel Reeves there is having a chat with, what's his name? I like him. Clive Lewis? Was that Clive Lewis you were chatting to? And then, other people. It's interesting to see which Tories talk to Labour and which only talk to Tories. There's Stephen Flynn, heading out there. Moon-faced weirdos. Anyway, Tories. Can't live with him. Can't. Well, yeah, I suppose you could actually. Point scoring pointlessness, says Duke Vengeance. Well, I mean, I think that Ed Davey, when he asks questions, really shows how good it could be if Prime Minister's questions was done right. If Prime Minister's questions was done in a manner where the questions are, it's not just a case of being respectful, but also something that needs addressing, and we need to know what the Prime Minister thinks about that. So when 99% of the questions coming from Tories are like, oh, things are shit. You said things weren't going to be shit, and things are shit. It's like completely fucking useless. What we need to know is what we're planning to do about the tariffs, which is something that Ed Davey asked. And there's two things here. First of all, I don't think that Prime Minister's questions is completely useless, because you do get stuff like that. You do get the good questions from people like Ed Davey. I don't like the questions that we get from the Labour side, which are just like, hey, Mr. Starmer, I think you're great. I think you're swell, awesome. Keep up the good work. And he stands up and goes, oh, thanks. I don't think that there's much point there either. I like it when there's actual questions with substance that then need to be answered, because we need the answers. Those people in that house in that chamber are surrogates for us. These are the questions that we need answering. I want to know what the government is doing about beefing up the online safety bill, because I don't think it goes far enough, because it's reactive, it's based on software and not hardware. It's got a lot of problems with it. It seems to think that kids are as daffy and, around technology as older people are, as, they are. It's like trying to get on a phone and they're just like, the kids aren't. Kids are smart. They use VPNs. They use ways of getting around something. They know how to jailbreak phones. And the only way around that I can see, and I've written to my MP about this, is only having hardware, having phones that are kids' phones. It would be like trying to play a VHS tape on a DVD to try and see porn on one of these devices. You just can't go to those websites, as simple as that. When you go on the internet, you're not really going on the internet. You can't go to any site. You can only go to the set sites that are set up for kids. They're the only ones you can access. And the phone physically can't access stuff that's not hardwired into it, essentially. And there's no way of jailbreaking it, short of opening it up and resoldering a new CPU into it. Would be out of the budget of most 13-year-old kids. So yeah, that's when it's good. But also, talking about PMQs, I'm so glad they do this, because this isn't what happens in America. You don't get this in America. You get the Prime Minister over there, the President, they call him, standing up in front of their Parliament, making a fucking 1.5 hour speech like he's the fucking King of England or something. And everyone has to sit there respectfully listening to it. And if anyone stands up and makes a fuss, they get censured. Like what Al Green got last week. He got censured by 10 of his own people from his own party, right? Meanwhile, what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene when she shouted at Biden during the State of the Union last year? Did she get censured by her own party? Did she fuck? She didn't. So what? Anyway, I like this format. I like the fact that you get the MPs asking about 30 questions, standing up and grilling the Prime Minister, saying, why are you doing this? What are you doing this? What are you doing about this? What's your plans for this? And getting that out of the government in a way that is accessible to all of us, because we can just watch a quick clip. Here's Keir Starmer's response to this question. Boom, 30 seconds. That's all you need. You don't need to read government white papers or a manifesto to find out what's actually going on. I think it's a really good, effective way of getting messaging out, not just for the government, but also for the opposition parties as well. It allows smaller opposition parties like the Alliance Party in Northern Ireland to have a representative there asking questions of the Prime Minister about Northern Ireland, which is brilliant. Like you don't see too much of that going on in other stuff in Parliament, but also in other parliaments. And I think that's a good thing that we have. And don't forget, Prime Minister's questions don't go back to the dawn of time or something. They've only been around since the 1970s. Someone should look this up and correct me as required. But I think they were a bloody good idea. It might have been the 80s, actually. I think it was Maggie Thatcher who brought it in and brought in the format and everything. Leapshin says, thanks for behaving yourself today. Oh, you cheeky bugger. We were actually able to hear everything today. Leapshin, if you don't want me talking over the Tories in the show, in the PMQs, watch it on the BBC. Watch it on parliamentlive.tv, for God's sake. Don't watch it on here. I'm subscribed to 400 YouTube channels. I love the system despite the adverts. Adverts do my head in, but there you go. Jen says, one thing boomers don't, all their mates write with a network of experts in a moment, while the OOP crowd sits there wondering what you are an illegal human means. Yeah, well, exactly. I only watch PMQs with Hughes to see Kemi ask her dumb questions. She's really bad at it, isn't she? She's not even like... Because Keir Starmer wasn't great at being the opposition leader and doing PMQs. Obviously, we had COVID to start with, but once things got back to normal in Parliament, it took a while for him to sort of hit his stride as an opposition leader. But like, I'm sure it didn't take this long. Like, how long has Kemi Badenoch been the leader of the Tory party now? What, 4 months? 5 months? I mean, that's crazy. That's proper mad, isn't it? That she hasn't got a team around her who can say, okay, here are the questions we're going to ask. We're going to wrong foot. It's what you need to do, right? I'm not giving this as like, advice to Tories. So close your ears, Wayne. What you want to do is you want to lull the Prime Minister into a false sense of security, thinking you're going to go pursue a certain line of questioning. And then you switch out. You switch out your attack. You make him think he's going to get hit with a right, and then you southpaw right in there, right in the chopper. Right in the chopper? No, that's not right, is it? Right in the kisser. Right in the chopper. Oh, will that be painful? Pow! Right in the kisser. And that's what she needs to do, but she doesn't seem to have the capability of, first of all, having the team around her to foresee what answers are going to come. So Keir Starmer seems quite good at guessing what questions she's going to ask, because it's really obvious each week. And so he's got everything in front of him that he needs. He has all the stats he needs to just demolish anything she says. But I don't think she's got that team around her. And she can't think on her feet. She clearly can't think on her feet. If a question comes in and she's not expecting it, she's like, sorry, an answer, I should say, because obviously she's asking the questions. If an answer comes in and it's not what she was expecting. So there's been a few incidents over the last few weeks where you've had this ridiculous situation where Keir Starmer stood up and made like he just talked for like 10 seconds to put her down in a stupid question that she's asked. And then she stood up and went and accused him of waffling. And it's like, he spent less time answering the question than you spent asking the question in the first place, and you accused him of waffling. But it was just because that's what was there in front of her on her pad. Accuse him of waffling. But he wasn't waffling. Or answer the question. I did answer the question. It was the other week. He was like 3 times in a row. He said, I've just answered that question. Blair made PMQs more meaningful. Expecting Graham not to talk. Lol, says Oliver. I know. It's like expecting Wayne not to be a massive Tory. I don't know if Wayne's still watching. He's been pissed off at me now. And Anne Phillips, like old Science Doesn't Matter, like old meme. How do you open a childproof lock? Answer, I hand it to your nearest 6-year-old. Yeah. What we need is devices that can... it's like Nintendo Switches, right? Presumably, you could hack them. They actually got on the internet and stuff, or even a Nintendo Wii. Back then, you can get on the internet with it, but you can only go to certain things that Nintendo let you go to on it, and it's to hack it is a lot. It's not something that you could easily do. But with something where you can only use specific apps on the device. Okay, so this is the simplest way I can sort of explain this. And I'm not trying to be patronizing. I'm just trying to sort of explain it how I would do it, and you can tell me why this wouldn't work. Is like with Apple, you can only put apps on that go through the App Store. So imagine that you have a device and the only things that can be put on it, the only programs that can be put on it have to have a special code, right? And the only programs that get to have this code to be able to be used on this device are given to them by the makers of the device. So you have to be approved by the makers of the device, and you have to be a trusted source, a trusted computer app creator, whatever it is. You're making a game for children, or you're making a version of WhatsApp for kids where strangers can't contact you, because this is a huge issue where strangers contact children and they pretend to be someone else. They put their name in and say, oh, it's me, it's Amy. And they've got a friend called Amy. And it says, oh, I've got a new phone. This is my new phone number. And they're like, oh, hi, Amy. How's it going? It's not Amy. It's some disgusting 35-year-old man sitting in a bed sit in Croydon pretending. And then he'll say to, the conversation will eventually get to a point where the child is encouraged to take their clothes off, for instance. And then what happens a lot these days is that child is then blackmailed by the person who's pretending to be Amy. It's blackmailed into going into their parents' purse, stealing a credit card, debit card, and going out and stealing money out of the account to pay for this person, or moving it from an electronic account. That has to stop happening. The version of WhatsApp that kids use, no one can send an unsolicited number to. If their number is not already in your phone, down as one of your mates, no one can send you a message on that phone. No one can send you an unsolicited text message. No one can call you on that phone unless they're registered on that phone. Obviously, kids will be upset with their parents and might delete their parents' number from the phone. But when you sign up for the phone, you get the parents' numbers hardwired into it, so the kids can't delete it, right? Well, not hardwired, but you know what I mean. It's undeletable. Yeah, like Facebook on a freaking Google phone. But this is what we can do. And then you have the actual hardware doesn't allow the kids to get access to anything they shouldn't get to. They can't go on the dark web. They can't go to a torrent site. They can't use a VPN because the hardware will not allow it on the phone. And this should be standard around the world, not just in Britain, because saying the two most annoying things are like people go, oh, we shouldn't give kids phones, right? Our youngest, everyone in her year has a phone. Everyone. And, except her. And they're all chatting away on WhatsApp and Snapchat and stuff, and they're all organising parties and get-togethers and stuff, and she's left out because she hasn't got a phone. How shit is that? Do you feel like a bad parent for not letting them enjoy seeing their mates and actually the experience of sending stickers and daft shit to their mates? But at the same time, you're feeling like a good parent because you're like, well, I shouldn't be exposing her to this stuff. And if you get her a phone, then suddenly you'll feel like a bad parent and you can't win. So we have phones for kids. Simple as that. Easy. And I say this is easy because they already make the freaking phones. This is just a case of when you do the BIOS and the phones, the hardwired information for that phone, for how it works, you say you only allow apps that are, Apple apps or Nintendo apps or whatever, yeah? You just do that. And you tell the tech companies they have to make junior versions of all of their big products, and you have to have these provisos in there. Make sure that kids can't send each other photos of each other on Snapchat. I know that's going to piss people off because they'll be like, but that's the whole point of having Snapchat. Tough. It's so misused, and so many children are being really, really damaged by this stuff. And it's moving so fast, and so many parents who, perhaps aren't quite as tech literate as they think they are, they're having their kids run laps around them. You give a kid a phone, they can access anything. They can access anything. But if you don't give them a phone, you feel like a bad parent because all the other kids have got phones. Yeah, it's got to be done. YouTube Kids works, yeah. So that's it. So Donkey, you wouldn't have access to YouTube on a kid's phone, but you would. You can't even download it. You can't have that app. You don't have Chrome. You don't have Firefox. You don't have Safari. You don't have any kind of web browser on it. It just does not have that functionality. You can only get apps, and the apps are strictly curated so that if you say this is a phone for a 12-year-old, they get apps that are appropriate for a 12-year-old. And there's no way that they can see anything that is, because it only takes one image to really, really mess a kid's head up. They're scrolling through stuff really fast, and then something comes up that's absolutely horrific that they should not be seeing at that age. And look, I get it. Like, all kids are different, and you know your own kids. And some of them can watch horror movies that have 18 certificates when they were 12. I did, and I'll say it never did me no harm. I don't think it did. But then other children who are a bit more sensitive to stuff like that, it can really mess them up and lead to a lifetime of mental health problems as a result of the stuff they're exposed to when they're very young. And we've got to be very, very careful about this. And not just for little kids, but also for teenagers going down the pipeline of young men who feel frustrated because they can't get a date. And so they start watching these self-improvement videos, these Andrew Tate videos, which are all about hating women and putting women down and making women feel, negged, isn't it? Negging women, which is when you say horrible things to women to make them like you, because that works. And that's damaging as well. The conspiracy theory websites, the bullshit out there. It's like this magnificent bullshit engine that we've created in our phones that anyone can have access to, and our kids have access to it. And once they start going down a rabbit hole, it can consume them, and it can really mess them up. And why it's taken the government so fucking long to do anything about this is mind-blowing. We've had the internet for 30 freaking years. 30 years. I got my first email address probably nearly 30 years ago. 3 decades, and now they're just going, oh, well, maybe we should, restrict this. And another thing on this as well is the solutions that they've got in the online safety bill, which is a Tory bill, but it's going through in force this week. The way they try and deal with stuff like pornography is to say you have to use your credit card. So you have to give your credit card details to some person who's peddling smut, which no one wants to do anyway, and that'll stop kids seeing it. I'm like, are you daft? Like, they just don't understand how computers work. They don't understand how phones work. Like, getting around this stuff, downloading a VPN, pretending you're in Costa Rica, going on piratebay.com, and then, thepiratebay.org, maybe, if you want to go there, and downloading whatever the shit you want. Like, no matter how graphic and messed up. I mean, you can do that on a phone. I can do that on my phone right now. If I got my kids' phones, I could probably do it on theirs. I don't want them to do it on their phones because, obviously, I don't want them seeing that shit. But I have no control of them 24 hours a day. I don't know what their mates are showing them in school, what they've downloaded on their phones, or the older brother or sisters, giving them. This is an issue. This is the big issue that they think, oh, well, we'll stop it by making people put a credit card number on, and then they won't be able to get access to porn. I'm like, is this your first day here? Is this your first day on the internet? Is it? I feel like embarrassed for the stupidity and the naivety of it, thinking that this is the way to make it a better place. And I'm sure there's some people in the chat. I'll have a look now, but if you've got a better idea than actually just having bespoke bloody phones for kids that cannot access this stuff, otherwise you have the hardware to access all this stuff, and the only thing protecting those kids is software, which can be hacked really easily. It's a lot easier to hack software than it is to hack hardware. End of. I know it can be done. I know you can flash a drive, and I know you can change the BIOS, and I know you can do all that shit. But that's pretty complicated. It's pretty advanced stuff, right? And if you're 12, 13 years old, you're not really going to be looking that stuff up on your phone. But then you say, oh, you can't have a phone. But then your kid's got to use a laptop in order to work for school. And the laptop's got that bloody internet on it, back to square one. So we need to have a think about the best, most effective way to stop kids seeing stuff that they shouldn't see for their own safety, for their own protection. Allowing parents to properly monitor what their kids are being exposed to, without being too, looking over your shoulder while you're writing a fucking text message. Give them a modicum of freedom, but just make sure that there's a certain boundary beyond which they can't go until they're 16 or 18 and moved out the house, 21, 46, I don't care what age it is, but pick an age. Pick an age. Because we can't go on like this. There's too many young people who are getting really damaged by the fucked up shit on the internet. And I'm not just talking about pornography here. I'm talking about Andrew Tate and all that bullshit. Because it's really, really messing up a generation of kids, which I don't think it should. I don't think kids should be watching this, to be honest with you. Not that I think I'll be messing anyone up, but I swear a lot, I use some fruity language. I don't know. Anyway, I agree, Graham. I was a case in Edinburgh last month of a kid getting blackmailed, says Alistair. Yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific. MZ says, Scott, you're one of my essential folks keeping this steady, hearty community on Graham's going. Oh, that's nice. And I like it when people are nice to each other. Lord Clegg was the head of Facebook during this WhatsApp lockdown, right? Well, yeah. Obviously, kids can be so badly affected in other ways, but I'm surprised of how things that would have shocked me are just water off a duck's back, says Scott. Well, someone described it on the radio yesterday really well. They said, imagine there's a building and it's full of paedophiles. Would you let your kid go in that building? And it's like, no. And the internet's full of paedophiles. All these are parenting issues, says Donkey. No, Donkey, I completely 100% disagree with you. When you're a parent, we're living in a world now where both parents have to work full time and look after the house and do all the cleaning and make all the food and then wash up all the fucking dishes after you've eaten the food. And you've got to get the kids to school. You've got to get them in uniform. You've got to get them back from school. You've got to make sure they can get to school to and fro safely. And you've got to, try and find like 5 minutes a week to relax so your brain doesn't fucking melt. And then you've got your kids, right, on a device. Are you going to step out? Are you going to look over the shoulder the whole time, 24/7, to see what they're doing on the device? You can't. You just literally can't. I think that's a really naive thing to say, Donkey. And I assume that you don't have kids or something, because honestly, to think that parents have the ability to monitor their kids, what they're doing all the time, yeah, sure. We can see that shit, that one of the kids is on YouTube and how long they're spent on YouTube, and we can cap it to 50 minutes if we want to a day. But then they go on to the web version of YouTube and they watch more YouTube videos. We don't know what they're watching. We assume it's set to YouTube Kids because that's what we've set it to. So we have to give YouTube Kids the benefit of the doubt. But other than checking now and again, like I can see my stepdaughter's WhatsApp messages. Like I can see them on my computer if I want to. I don't, but if anything came up, a bullying issue or something like, what we've talked about earlier in the show came up. I mean, obviously, we've said to the kids, like, if someone sends a message to you and you don't know who they are, it's a new number, you need to let us know immediately. And letting kids know about certain things that can happen with phones. But why they can't have a phone set up, hardwired, so it can't take incoming messages from someone who's not already in the contacts list is just bonkers to me. Why are we giving kids a device that a paedophile can just call them on? It's just, what? Anyone can just random number. It's happening with AI now, where you've got all these AI bots that are putting out text messages to all these people. And sometimes we hear about older people who get caught out with this. They get a text message from a random number. Hi, it's Dave or David or Andrew, or like quite a common name. And then it says, I've lost my phone and this is my new phone number. Hi, Mum. It's me. This is my new phone number. I need 50 quid. Yeah. Let's have a look. This year, my youngest got a phone, now 15, had an old Nokia type phone, only texting phone for about a year. Well, I went around the world with just a Nokia phone. I've seen some terrible things when I was younger online that definitely affected me later in life, says UK Medsy. Yeah, I completely get that. Scott, my son and his partner, 3 jobs, 6 days a week, childcare costs tons. They have so little time, they're knackered. Yeah. No, but Scott, you should be watching what they're looking on the internet at all times. Come on. In the USA, there's Black Thursday. Scott, different eras, but folks don't change. I agree. You calibrate to advance poorly. What the hell are you talking about, Donkey? I think Donkey's had the drink. Stuart saying, when I was younger, I was sneaking into the cinema to watch 18 films such as Emmanuel. Oh, damn with the days. Didn't that have Lovejoy in it? Am I just dreaming? Did Emmanuel have Lovejoy in it? Ian McShane, did it? Or was he just like a mate of hers, of Sylvia Cristal, wasn't it, in Emmanuel? Now, I was watching Die Hard and Alien. Alien's one of my favourite movies when I was a kid. I watched all of the Freddy films and all the Jason films. I was a snotty little, snot-nosed boy. and I was the youngest of 4 as well. So I was exposed to some stuff at quite a young age. But I am grateful that wasn't exposed to the stuff that's available now. Let's put it that way. It was all a bit 8-bit. You can only do your best, not by being an alarmist in my experience. An alarmist... I hate that term, Donkey. An alarmist. When you point out when things are going bad or things are going the way that they should be, and people go, "Are you just being alarmist?" So, and I would rather be alarmist and point this shit out to people than let people fall off a cliff. It's like, be careful shouting out to someone who's on a windy cliff top. Oh, stop being alarmist! Ah! It's just like, no. The word alarmist was invented by the right wing to try and put down people who were bringing attention to the fact that the world is getting hotter, and that means more extreme weather events, and it means more people who are going to be migrating in the future because the land in which they live will be no longer habitable because it'll either be too fucking hot or too fucking cold, or the wind or the water has risen too fucking high and they're under 16 feet of fucking water. Like, people are going to have to move. And what do people in this country hate more than anything? Seemingly, it's people moving, especially here. Where else are they going to go? But there you go. Donkeys, you've put too many messages here. I'm just going to put you into timeout for a bit because you're dominating the messages and I don't like that. I remember seeing the story of O when I was about 13. Blimey, was educational. Yes, indeed. There was Emmanuel, story of O. There was Deep Throat and Debbie Does Dallas. They were the ones who grubby little VHS tapes being passed around by the boys in my school. MZ found kiddo persuaded to set up his own Discord account with mates for gaming after school. Started joining strange servers, had to put a stop to that. Yeah, again, if it was set up in such a way that they could use something like Discord, but it was just for their group, and if they weren't advertised to go to other Discord groups, they couldn't join other Discord groups with other people from, other kids from other schools or pedophiles. No, you got to make it a closed loop, and to do this is going to require legislation because the tech companies aren't going to do it themselves. The manufacturers of the phones aren't going to do it, and the software manufacturers are not going to do it unless they are forced to. This is the same with cigarettes. They're not going to hide the cigarettes behind the counter unless they're forced to. Otherwise, it's going to be adverts everywhere. Every time you buy some sweets as a kid, you see all these multicolored adverts for bloody cigarettes. And you're like, ooh, is that what adults do? Oh, cool. Because when you're a kid, all you want to be is treated like an adult. That's it. All you want is a little respect, baby. Yeah. When you're a kid, because the adults that I warmed to when I was a child were always the ones who spoke to me like I was just a normal person. Didn't talk down to me like I was a little idiot. Like this. That would really wind me up when people talked in singy-songy fucking voice. I would just be like... And at the time, I didn't know what it was about that particular adult that just boiled my piss because I couldn't really identify it. But as I've got older, I've gone, oh yeah, it's because they talked to me like I was a fucking dickhead. So when you're a kid and you go into a sweet shop and you see cigarettes behind the counter, you see all the adults smoking cigarettes, I want to be seen as an adult. I want to be seen as a grown-up. That's what I'll do. I'll smoke. And, kids go out and they do risky stuff and they do things that, they'll regret for the rest of their lives. And at the moment, it's all being recorded on the fucking internet. Like, oh my God, I am so grateful. I'm not religious, so thank goodness, let's say, thank goodness. I wasn't, when I was 16, the internet was just really slow and shit and people didn't share every stupid idea, every fart, burp or squeak they fucking made went on the internet. Because I would cringe now 30 years later at the shit that I had put on the internet when I was 16. I would cringe so hard, I would put my back out and I would never walk again. That's how badly I would cringe. And yet kids now, they're putting stuff online, not thinking about it, not thinking about the stuff that it's going to be there forever. Because for a kid, forever really doesn't exist. They don't really have as much of a concept as forever as some older people do. You know, and thinking about how this can affect you down the line, especially when you're growing up in an area where there's not much in the way of good jobs or anything. You think, well, how's that going to affect my job 20 years down the line? And it's one of those things where if people pick out a tweet that someone put out 10 years ago and it's a problematic tweet, I really wish that those who have put the tweet out would just say, well, they often do this, but like, I shouldn't have said that. That's what I thought then. I don't think that anymore. I'm really embarrassed about the fact that I said that. I'll take it down. I apologize to whichever community I offended or whichever person I offended. And that should be the end of it. But it isn't. First of all, you've got people who go, oh, I defend what I said 10 years ago. That was horrifically racist or bigoted or whatever. But the other one is that the people will never let it lie. The people who want to demonize anyone who dares put their head above the parapet, if they're right wing, that's one thing. But if they're left wing and they put their head above the parapet, oh my God, get them. Can't find everything they've ever said about anything. And then they'll throw it up again and again and again and again and again. But which is the point? I think people just get to the point where they're like, I'm not even going to apologize for this anymore. It's just like, it's a stupid thing to say. But when people are losing their jobs after something they wrote 10, 15 years ago, that has never really happened before. We never experienced that in the 1990s or even in the 10s. The 10s, in the noughties, because social media hadn't been around that long. There wasn't something that, imagine you wrote in one of your textbooks, right, in school, when you're in school, remember that? 1976. And you write in the textbook something that you've heard your dad say. And your dad's a bit of a racist. Your dad's a bit of a bigot, your dad's a bit of a homophobe. So you write something incredibly derogatory about gay people in the margin of your textbook, right? And then literally 50 years later, when you're standing to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, they pull out this textbook. Look what they wrote in 1976. That's what kids have to deal with now, and they will for the next 50 years. That's something that let's try and protect kids against their future, their past selves in the future. Let's try and protect kids from the ghosts of future past. Let's try and protect kids from doing daft things now that they will regret decades down the line. And the way we can do that is by reducing the amount of input they can have on the internet, and reducing the amount of exposure they can get to problematic parts of the internet. And the online safety bill, in one way, it doesn't go far enough, and in another way, it goes too far. I think that asking for credit cards to go onto porn sites, I think is ridiculous because it just stops people going to legitimate porn sites where the porn is actually monitored, and it's not rape porn, it's not violent, it's not abusing abusing people or animals or whatever. Those guardrails are taken off when you head off. You go, well, I'm not giving me card details. I'm off to the dark web where I can see anything I want. Yeah, problematic. Really, really problematic. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. I could have done a whole show on that, couldn't I? Maybe I should have done. Oh well. Welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes, where I've just been going off on something for ages. Jennifer Powell says, red Tories. Well, there you go. UK med seat. Not everyone thinks like that. There's also a type of strong sense of justice. Science Lives Matter says, if only a few messages from someone is read, who said, if you give me 6 lines written by the hand of the most honest of men, I will find something in them to hang them, which will hang them. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the situation we're putting kids in today, where they got to, yeah. I mean, it's not just being embarrassed later in life. It's like losing your job, losing your family, losing your home. I mean, come on. It's pretty serious. So Mr. Key was banned. The shame is pointing out the technical issues that were not easily solvable, like nicotine industry, where vapes have solved the problem. Nicotine industry, the vapes have definitely not solved the problem. They're just as bloody toxic as bloody cigarettes, aren't they? No, it was just that Mr. Key was leaving too many messages, but that's fine. He's not been banned. He's just been put in timeout for a few minutes. He should be back in a few minutes. Duke not knowing the guest, though I agree with you. And Science Lives Matter says, I have children. Okay. What, like attacking Labour for disability benefits cuts when there's literally no evidence for it? Duke, I was going to bring this up when PMQs were going, but I realised I had to stop the stream from Parliament to address it. But Labour aren't doing their job, Duke, at the moment. Labour should be allaying fears for what's going to happen. And they're not. And they're not doing it because this seems to be a Labour policy, right? Which I've noticed, and you might have noticed it as well, that before a big announcement, whether it's the autumn budget, the spring statement, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Or the summer solstice, they'll make people think it's going to be worse than it is. So when the actual statement is read, when the actual budget is given, it doesn't sound as bad. And like, oh, phew, God, I thought they were going to take PIP away, but they didn't. Phew. Meanwhile, they take something else away, right? And I think that's really, really irresponsible. Because when you're dealing with people who are off work with stress, for instance, you're just making them more stressed, and I think that's out of order. I don't go for these political games. I think that Labour are in the wrong here. I think Labour should be quite clear on what they intend to do, and for them to give reassurances to people that they, you know, if they need PIP, if they need their benefits, they are not going to be cut. And saying, look, we're going to encourage people to get back to work and we're going to help them with that, rather than the Tory way, which is like, get back to work even though you're disabled, or we'll take away your benefits and you'll starve to death. Yeah, doesn't work for me. So yeah, I think that I think that there is no bill, there's no white paper, and there's no green paper either. And there's not a green paper, it's not worth debating, says Duke. No, there's a spring statement that's coming from Rachel Reeves next week, I think. No, it's not next week, it's the week after, isn't it? It's the end of March. It's the end of this month. We're getting the spring statement, it's a mini budget, and changes are going to be made to the benefit system. And we don't know much more than that. And I can see why people are concerned about it. So, yeah, sorry to have it out with you online, whatever. Stuart says, Graham, the new Alexi Sale. I've got a little bit more hair than Alexi. Always liked Alexi Sale. He was in Indiana Jones. Weber downdraft carburetor. Science Lives Matter for a few minutes. Transparency is important in what we want from government. You're over an hour, so they will return before the stream is over. Transparency is important in what we want from the government. What? I'm sorry. I'm not the government, mate. just some gobby twat with a channel on YouTube. Does Science Lives Matter know that I'm not the actual Prime Minister? Oh my God. Anyway, Duke, when it's made a talking point, then it's going to be talked about. Government need to shut it down or explain. Now it's in the open. Yes, Scott, I completely agree. It needs to be discussed. They need to be allaying fears. That's what the government's role. I'm going to sign off on this, all right? Whether Donkey comes back or not. I'm sorry, I looked at all Donkey's messages and they just appeared to be gobbledygook. I don't know if anyone else sort of got that impression, but they didn't make much sense to me, and there were loads of them. And I hate it when people swamp the chat with their own, words to say. It's a bit selfish, I think. But yeah, a government's job is to defend the people. That's it. That's their job from top to bottom, left and right. Defend the people. What do we need defending against? We need defending against poverty. We need defending against war. We need defending against foreign invading armies. We need defending against killers, rapists, murderers, people who steal things from us. We need protecting from those things. And that's what the government should be doing. They should be protecting us from ignorance. They should be protecting us from false narratives, lies, misogynistic, disgusting, anti-democratic, bigoted shite. They should be protecting us from that. And not in a nanny state. The Tories who want to ban fucking protests love going on about the nanny state. No, it's not about the nanny state. It is the core principle of a government. It is the reason why, and there's a social contract drawn up by our friends in the Enlightenment, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire. You have a contract with the government, and the contract is like this. This is from Leviathan by Hobbes. You give up certain inalienable rights to your government in order for your government to protect you. That's the deal. If the government stops protecting you, then it's not valid as a government. If you don't live in that society by the rules that the government has given you, by the laws of the land, then you are in breach of the social contract. And yeah, there should be punishment both ways. So if it's the government doing it, they should be punished. If it's you doing it, you should be punished for breaking the social contract. And so for a government to come in and say, oh, you know, it's all laissez-faire. Let's let the markets decide. Hey, no, absolutely not. The market is immoral in a lot of cases. Doesn't give a shit. They just want to see their stock price go up, and they'll do anything to make that happen. It's not putting people first. It's not putting the country first. It's only putting the investments of private individuals first, which I don't think should be put on a pedestal above all others, especially when we're living in a country in which over 1 million children are living in extreme poverty. But there you go. Duke Vengeance hates the news media. Yeah, well, there you go. The government needs to govern for all the people, not just the people who voted for them like the Tories did. Absolutely agree, Stuart. Absolutely agree. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of having a government is protection. Yes, it's a protection racket, if you want to look at it that way. But if they're not offering you the protection from unemployment, protection against disease, protection against people who mean you harm, then they're not doing their job. And you know what? It's not absolute. Obviously, some people will still get ill. But if they do, there should be things in place to help them get better. And it shouldn't be based on how much fucking money you've got in the bank account. That blows the mind of Americans, doesn't it? So how do you pay for your NHS? Well, we pay for it through our taxes. So it's a lot more efficient and cost effective than the American system, where they spend more money on Medicare and Medicaid, which doesn't even cover everyone. It's just because medical procedures and medicines are just so expensive in America. Doctors and nurses and things get paid a lot, and hospital administrators paid a shitload, and then the insurance companies need a cut of all that, don't forget, and Big Pharma and all those lovely, lovely people who just want you to be the best you that's possible to be you. No, they don't. They just want your money. Right. Okay, I'm going to head off now. So thank you very much for watching. I might do a show tonight. I might do a Weather for Carby tonight, or if Rachel's up for it, we might have a Wednesday night musings. I've got to think of a better title for that. But yeah, if you would like to join me and Rachel tonight, if she's up for it, it'll be 6 o'clock. If she's not up for it, I'll do a Weather for Carby at 6. So just join me at 6 here on the same bat channel at a different bat time. If you can't be around this evening, then I'm going to be back tomorrow morning for Morning Brew at 9 o'clock. So until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Thanks for the amazing super chat, Andrew Dixon. That was amazing. Thank you if you're still there. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.